No, I'm not going to keep you that long. I want to talk about just a couple of things this afternoon, then we'd really like to open it up for questions and answers. So, some of you, if you watch the movie Kiss the Ground, you might recognize this picture. And I'll just tell you a story about that. So, Kiss the Ground was filmed 8 years ago, and it started out, they were going to have a film about organic food and how the world needs to switch to organic. And then the producers contacted Ray Archuleta. And Ray, of course, you know Ray, he's a little opinionated. And Ray said, well, you got to go up to Gabe Brown's. And so Ray met them at my place, and we proceeded to spend 4 days talking about soils and showing them differences in soils, and they left there, and kind of the focus of the movie changed a bit from organic to healthy soils. But realize that movie, the funders of that movie, they had their agenda, should we say? I'll just put it politely, and that was no animals and organic. Well, I give Josh and Rebecca, the producers, credit. They kind of changed that movie some. It still was heavy on organic, but at least they mentioned the importance of livestock. Anyway, when they were at my ranch, they saw the chickens out on pasture, and they asked, is there really a difference? And so I told them, I'll tell you what, when you go to town tonight, you go to any store and buy a dozen eggs. And tomorrow we'll see if there's a difference. So they come up the next day, and they had their fancy dozen eggs. And then I let them go out into our eggmobiles and pick a bunch of eggs out of there. Then they stood there and they cracked the eggs open to see the difference. And they went through that whole dozen, and every one there was a difference like this. Well, they flew away, went back to LA at the end of that, and I didn't hear from them for 5 years. All of a sudden, I got a phone call from them. Hey, Gabe, you remember us? We were there and filmed, and I said, yeah. He said, well, we're still working on the film, but we put together a few clips of it, and we ran that by our test audience. The most liked scene in the whole movie was the one of the eggs. So they said, we would like to come back out to your place and film that again. I said, sure. So they flew a film crew out just to get that shot there. They spent a whole day cracking eggs, and yes, I did charge them. But nobody can look at this photo here and not realize there is a difference. One of the things that I'm really passionate about and working on is how do we quantify all the good work we're doing on farms and ranches raising nutrient-dense, healthy food. And when I started researching this, it's amazing what we found. The nutrient density of the foods we're producing has decreased anywhere from 15 to 65% in the last 50 years. 27 kinds of vegetables. Look at how those nutrients have decreased. Okay? This is vegetables. Look at meat. Okay? A lot of people eat beef for the iron. Look at this. Iron's declined 54%. So we think we're doing a good job. But look at human health. Okay? To get the same nutrients as in 1940, a person today would have to consume twice as much meat, 3 times as much fruit, 4 times as many vegetables. Now, take a look at this. The United States spends more on healthcare than any other country in the world per capita. Yet we're at the top, or near the top, ADD, ADHD, cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autoimmune diseases, osteoporosis, and the list goes on. Are farmers and ranchers to blame for all this? No, absolutely not. Sedentary lifestyle, etc. But, are we to blame for some of it? Yeah. And in my mind, it all ties back to what I talked about with you this morning. It all comes back to soil degradation. This is Dr. Zach Bush, accredited in 3 different fields. Dr. Zach Bush attended one of our soil health academies, and I'll never forget it. That man there grasped soil health and just better than just about any farmer at that academy. And he said this, he said, the best way to address this human health crisis is with nutrient-dense food. The only way to produce nutrient-dense food is with healthy soil. And I really believe that. And it's become a goal of ours at Understanding Ag and Soil Health Academy to see if this is true or not. One of the books that I enjoyed most was a book, One Straw Revolution, by a gentleman, Masanobu Fukuoka. And he said this, food and medicine are not two different things. They are the front and back of one body. Chemically grown vegetables may be eaten for food, but they cannot be used for medicine. Do any of you know this lady? That's Dr. Stephanie Seneff. She is the lead scientist at MIT. Now, how intelligent do you have to be the lead scientist at MIT? She wrote a book called Toxic Legacy. Read it. This gentleman here, you're going to be hearing a lot more about. This is Dr. Stefan Van Vliet. He's a medical doctor. He's at Utah State now. That machine right there is a mass spectrometer. We're working with Dr. Van Vliet to find out, is there or is there not a difference in the nutrient density of food grown in and on healthy soils. Dr. Van Vliet has found that grazing livestock species on plant-diverse pastures concentrates a wider array of phytochemicals in their meat and milk compared to animals grazing non-diverse pastures. With that mass spectrometer, Dr. Van Vliet can identify over 2,500 different phytonutrient compounds. What he's found is the mineralogy of those vegetables, grains, or meat is not statistically different because the minerals in the soil are the minerals in the soil. But what is different is these phytonutrients. And it's the phytonutrients that drive plant health, animal health, and human health. This is his slide. He let me use it. What he's finding is when we're talking about pasture proteins, if you raise your animal on concentrates, grain-fed, you're going to have a low diversity of this phytochemical richness. If you get them out of the corral and put them on monocultures, it'll improve slightly. But when you go to these very, very diverse mixes, you're going to significantly increase terpenoids, phenols, carotenoids, tocopherols. This is what drives human health, right here. Of course, we all have heard way too much of the COVID pandemic. And unfortunately, people have succumbed to it. But why have they succumbed to it? 99 times out of 100, it's a lack of these phytonutrients. It's a lack of a healthy gut microbiome. Use me for an example, okay? I know when you look at me, you just see health written all over me. But think of it. Since COVID hit 2 years ago, I have been on over 500 flights. I've been at over 600 of these functions in the past 2 years. I've had COVID twice, and yes, I'll tell you, I am a super spreader. I don't slow down one bit, because it hasn't bothered me. What you don't know about me is most of the food I eat when I travel, I take with me. I drink bone broth every morning for breakfast. I eat my supper at night, it's out of my suitcase. It may just be beef sticks, but it's from our ranch. I just do not get sick. And the reason is right here. What I eat is high in phytochemical richness, plain and simple. And we've been able to prove that on our ranch. I showed you this picture of this grass-finished heifer. What I did show you is what she looked like a few days later. Okay? There she is. We were part of this study measuring this phytonutrient richness of food. Dr. Montgomery compared our beef, lamb, pork, eggs, honey, at least 30% of that for themselves. That's way too much. Why should you give up 30%? That's just my opinion. But the other thing is, you should have the ability to sell that carbon anywhere in the world. So there's a company we're working with out of Australia that is actually, we're going to do the measurements. It will be stored in blockchain, so in other words in the cloud. It will then be tied to the deed of your land. So nobody else can steal it and sell it, it's yours. If you decide to sell it, then you can sell that carbon on any market anywhere in the world. Do you know what carbon's bringing in the European Union right now? $120 a ton. Okay? If you have 50, say you back on, I'll just back up here quick. Look at this. Carbon per acre. If you're able to store and sequester 4 tons of carbon per acre per year, which is being done on very well managed adaptive grazing ranches, that's $500 per acre. That's significant. Okay? Or you can sell it in the U.S. for $100. Now, I do think U.S. markets will improve in the near term as this advances. But my point is, we get a lot of pressure because we're on so many acres that people want us to recommend to our clients that they sell into carbon markets. First of all, 30% commission is way too high. Farmers deserve almost all that, if not all of it. Okay? Second of all, the methodology to accurately measure is not there. We spent $170,000 to measure carbon along with other ecosystem services on 600 acres of my land. We went down 4 feet. We took over 300 soil samples on those 600 acres. What we found after all that money in 3 years is it's incomplete. I'm storing carbon deeper than 4 feet. If I'm going to sell something and be paid for it, I want to know really how much I have and then to be rewarded accordingly if I decide to sell, right? So right now we're telling our clients it's too early. You do what you want to do, but be careful. Also, you need to get a lawyer involved who's familiar with this and reads the fine print. I actually read a carbon contract that ties you up for 99 years, okay? And if you sign that, your heirs are liable to that too. Now that's a point I have to discuss just for a minute. Understand you're selling carbon into the future. The end of 10 years, say, well, the companies who are going to buy these carbon credits are those that are high users of fossil fuels. So I'll just throw a name out there. Say an airline uses a tremendous amount of fossil fuel. At the end of 10, they bought your carbon credits. The end of 10 years, they get audited. They have to prove that that carbon is still out on your land. They're going to come and test your soil. If that carbon isn't in there, you're liable. And you got to pay for that. Okay, not just the testing. You got to pay the entire contract back, penalties, legal fees, everything. Be careful. Be extremely careful. There's a lot of smooth talkers out there right now that are getting farmers to sign up, and I just feel sorry for them. I'm not saying don't sign, but be very, very careful what you do. I had to put this one in there. That's my little grandson. That's why I do what I do. Now, I want to talk about something else. This is Dr. Jonathan Lundgren, Ecdysis Foundation. He is the world-famous entomologist. Ecdysis Foundation started a 1,000 farms initiative. It's the largest biodiversity study ever conducted in the world. Go on their website, Ecdysis Foundation. If you're interested, sign your farm up. What they will do, if you're chosen, they will come and do soil testing, and they're going to do this on one specific field or pasture on your farm. They're going to do soil testing. They're going to test for clean water. They're going to do biodiversity studies, plants, animals, insects. The cost of that is $7,500 per field, but they're getting funding for the whole thing. The cost to you will be zero. The beauty of that is then you get all this data. They're doing it years 1, 2, 3, and 5 is their plan. And then they're going to see a change in biodiversity based on your farming practices. It'll be your data, your name will not be shared. Okay. Now, as part of that, our firm, Understanding Ag, we're actually paying for 1 or 2 of the scientists to go with Dr. Lundgren. And we have started a company we call Regenified. And Regenified verifies these regenerative practices. Okay, what would that do for you? Now, this is a fee. There is a difference between the two. We're going to be able to use the data from Dr. Lundgren, and then the scientists that we hire will go with him. If you want to be verified, we can do that over time. You have to have a baseline, then you have to have a plan and show improvement. Our goal is to move everyone down the regenerative path. Now, here's the difference, and here's where it adds value to you. I don't do many of these conferences anymore. I spend the majority of my time working with businesses, trying to get businesses to understand that it's in their best interest to help farmers and ranchers move down the regenerative path. For example, we work closely with General Mills. General Mills knows that in order for them to succeed, they have to have a consistent supply of high-quality product. They know that that's going to come from regenerative farms and ranches. So what we're doing is getting these companies signed on where they will offer a contract and pay a premium to you as you move down the regenerative path. So it's going to put more dollars in producers' pockets if it fits your marketing plan. Okay, that's up to you. There's nothing forcing you. We already have a couple of beef companies signed on. We have several egg companies signed on. We've got a grain company signed on. And that's going to be our major focus. How do we reward farmers and ranchers for doing good? And we in turn think that will drive change on the landscape. It'll improve the nutrient-dense product, the nutrient-dense food and human health also. So look for that to come in the near future. But go on the Dices website, sign up, doesn't cost you anything. They're going to determine which farms according to how they're clustered, because to send a whole team of scientists onto these farms costs a pile of money. So they want to make sure that they're in similar locales. But it'll take place, they're going to go from Michigan all the way south to the Gulf and everything west this first year. So that includes Wisconsin. Yes?
A question about the carbon markets. How is ag going to compete with, say, like a oil company that can pump CO2 straight back down the bore, or even an ethanol company that can pipe?
Yeah, don't talk to me about CO2 companies because they want to put that through my land. I told them that's fine, but you'll drive over my dead body to do it.
So how does ag?
Yep, how does it compete? Because the data that we're accumulating, the data that Dr. Lundgren is going to accumulate, our goal is that that'll be so compelling that they can't ignore ag anymore. We have the ability to sequester carbon. It's kind of like when I first got the letter from the pipeline saying they wanted to come through my land, and our governor there in North Dakota was on the radio touting it, and I called him out and I said, I got a novel idea. I'll save you all the money of this pipeline and everything. Grow a plant. You know, that's what I told them. Grow a plant. You'll sequester more carbon. And they laugh, but they just don't understand. You don't know what you don't know. The beauty of us in agriculture is we have that ability. We do it every day. We can take massive amounts of CO2 and other compounds out of the atmosphere, and we can do it at a much lower cost, and we can put more money in our pockets because we're going to improve our cost of production while improving society and ecosystem function. So where does it start? It starts right here. We got to prove it to them. We got to do these large scale. They're not going to ignore data from 1,000 farms. Okay? So that's how. It's not easy. The government is very, very good at just running out and spending money on frivolous things that don't matter. Okay? Next thing, I just want to talk just a little bit about soil testing because this is where it starts. This is where the journey starts. You need to know these terms: mineralization, immobilization, organic nutrient, inorganic nutrient. And I talked briefly about this. Soil microorganisms, bacteria about 5 to 1. These are approximate values, okay? All soil 11 to 1, carbon to nitrogen. Biology in the soil likes a diet of about 24 to 1. So if we go out there and you all saw the rye roll down in front of soybeans, very high carbon. That rye actually immobilizes those nutrients. It takes up nutrients and holds it there. It takes biology a long time to break that rye straw down. That's mineralization. That's releasing it. In comparison, if we have hairy vetch cover crop, look at this, 11 to 1. You roll down a hairy vetch cover crop, it'll cycle the nutrients. It'll mineralize those nutrients very, very quickly. So our cover crop determines the release of those nutrients to the next, well, it's the release to biology and then in turn the next crop. I showed this picture. This lush growing cover crop's probably less than 20 to 1 carbon to nitrogen. This Sudan grass in the background's probably 60 to 1. All of that is nutrients, okay, that will be released over time. You terminate that, which is going to release nutrients quicker, right here. Mineralization. This will take much longer to break down. And as I said, the rye even longer than that. We have to understand those things. Now, the Haney test versus a standard soil test. Have your agronomists been lying to you? No, but they haven't been telling you the whole story. Okay? The soil tests they use very caustic chemicals to break that bond and tell you how much inorganic nutrients you have in your soils that day. The Haney test uses 3 common root exudates that will break that bond. So it's a much more natural process. That's how we can be more confident that you're going to get those nutrients released over a year's time. The test does, it's based on water. What happens in nature? Do we get these caustic chemicals in nature? No. What happens is it rains. When it rains, that water infiltrates into the soil. You have this CO2 burst. Biology comes to life, starts mineralizing these compounds, feeding the plants. So in the Haney test, when you send in a soil sample, it always asks you for where you're located. What you don't realize is they're looking up the average number of rainfall events that will occur in that growing season at your location. Now, yes, it's based on averages, but that's the best we can do. And that helps determine how often that soil is wetted, because it's a drying and wetting component that brings that biology back to life. Okay? A couple terms you need to know. And I'm trying to put this in simple terms because I'm a simple man. We're all familiar with soil organic matter. Think of that as the house. Microbes live in that house. Water extractable organic carbon is the food in that house. Okay? Water extractable organic carbon is what biology eats. Standard soil test only looks at the inorganic fraction. In other words, what's water soluble. What today, the day that soil test was taken, can be used by the plants. That's primarily nitrate nitrogen. Okay? That's why your agronomist has been showing you that 20, 50, 80 pounds, whatever, that's nitrate nitrogen. That's what is available that day. He or she was not lying to you. That is what is available that day. However, we have a huge pool of organic nutrients in the soil. This is that pool, all these different compounds. The Haney test looks at that too, okay? It looks at both organic and inorganic nutrients. Now, what your agronomist is not telling you, that if you have high populations of mycorrhizal fungi, that mycorrhizal fungi can take up those organic nutrients also. Why would I want to go write a check for fertilizer when it's in my soil already? Okay? And if I do my job and I have good populations of mycorrhizal fungi, I can make use of that. Typically, this is what we're seeing. Most soil tests would only show you this half approximately of nutrients, but you've got this whole other pool down here. And as I showed you in a TND test, you've actually got much, much, much more than that. Okay? So how do we move producers down this path? We do proper soil testing and then fertilize accordingly. Let's just take a look quickly. This is David Brandt's soil in Ohio. This is his cousins just across the fence. And I've stood there. It's the most amazing thing. There isn't even a fence there really. And every year one of them farms a little bit into the other one. You know, David and his cousin go back and forth a little. But you stand on David's and it's this beautiful black soil. Take one step over. You're on his cousin's. It's this ugly yellow clay. The difference is tillage, no till. This is on the Haney test. 1 day CO2 burst. 146. His cousin 12.4. Water-soluble organic carbon, in other words, the food for biology, 232, 115. Water-soluble organic nitrogen, 17, 8.3. Huge difference. This is a Haney test. This is often what we see. So the Haney test actually does do your regular soil test, and that'll show up right here, nitrate nitrogen. 12.3. So your agronomist would have sent in this sample and would have come back and said, you have 12.3 pounds of N. But the Haney test said, no, there's an organic fraction. Even in these very degraded tilled soils, there's another 8.5 pounds you're not getting credit for. Okay? We will give you credit for that. And we will back off your nitrogen use accordingly to start moving you down the path. Next example is pasture, and I show this one because this is what happens when you get into healthy soils. And this is where, quite frankly, if you have an agronomist that's recommending you fertilize pasture, pull a Haney test. Look at this, nitrate nitrogen, 1.3. Oh my goodness, you got to fertilize the crap out of that, you won't get any production. But look what the Haney test says. No, you got organic nitrogen, 24 pounds, almost 25 sitting there. You don't need to apply that. Okay? As we advance soil health, we're going to put a higher percentage of our nitrogen into the organic form. That means it's there for a slow release. It's not ending up in the watersheds. It's on our land. I told you this morning how 60% approximately of nutrients you apply in any given year are not used by the plant that year. You better have a living cover crop to tie it up, or a living plant and healthy biology. They'll tie it up for you and release it the next year. This is a picture I had to put up there because it's just so stark. This is Adam Dougherty, Tennessee. Fall of 2014, this is what the soils look like. He started producers on that path. Spring of 2017, so 2 crop years. They grew corn and soybeans, but they grew covers also. Look at the difference in those soils. 279% change in respiration, 39% more food here, which is going to make more money. We can do this over and over anywhere. You can certainly do that in Wisconsin. I've seen it many times. There's many producers in this room that have done it. So that's the Haney test. Besides the Haney test, we're going to do a PLFA test. Stands for phospholipid fatty acid. Every living organism, including humans, is made up of phospholipid fatty acids. What is this going to tell us? It's going to tell us the total biomass of living biology in the soil. Specifically, what we're going to look at is how much bacteria do you have. Bacteria is prey, but then we want to look at down here protozoa. How much protozoa? Protozoa is the predators. Doesn't do you any good to have a lot of bacteria, prey, and few predators. You got to have the predators in order to eat the prey. We will also look at right here our vascular mycorrhizal fungi. This is a very good sample, 5.71. How much fungi do you have in the soil? That'll tell us how quickly you're going to be able to build soil aggregates. This really isn't that difficult to figure out. We would be happy to walk through these soil samples with you. We send all our soil samples to Regen Ag Lab in Nebraska. I don't mean to badmouth any other lab, but we're on such a large acre. What we do, as I said, is we test the labs. So we send samples to multiple labs to look for consistency. We found up to 92% variation. We can't give soil recommendations based off that. This is the only lab we're using at the moment. Now I want to show you on really the difference this can make. So this is Paul Overby, a client of ours in North Dakota. This was this year on wheat ground. This is the Haney test. High rate of fertilizer, low, almost double the low rate. Okay? WEOC, that's water extractable organic carbon. Again, highest in the low rate. Protozoa to bacteria numbers. All these are bad. I'm not kidding you. He's got a lot of work to do. He needs to diversify. This is 10 years plus no-till. The PLFA test. Total biomass. Most under the low rate. Fungal to bacterial ratio. Best under the low rate. Again, as I said, this is not good here. Need improvement there. Now, what you care about, look at yield. High rate, 66.8. Low rate, 62.8. Medium rate, 56.7. But look at the amount of fertility. 305 pounds of urea, 65, 165. Now, gross income per acre, net income per acre. Look at the most profitable, the low rate. I will take profit over yield any day, because what else isn't this showing? Which is going to infiltrate more water. Because there's more microbial biomass, including mycorrhizal fungi in the low rate, what's that going to do next year? Which soil is going to be able to infiltrate more water? Which is going to build more soil aggregate? Which is going to supply more home for biology? So this is the first year, look how we got more profitability, right? But that's only going to compound positively down the road. Too many people think, oh, they want me to go down the regenerative path, but man, I'm going to lose money. No, you're not. We would be out of business in a heartbeat as consultants if you lost money, made less money. We're going to increase profitability because we're saving inputs. And we're doing it in a way that is healthier for the ecosystem and your bottom dollar. Any questions on that? I know I went through this real fast, but we're happy at any time to walk through any of this with you. And unlike lawyers, we do not charge bucks for phone calls. Yes?
Okay, it kind of makes a lot of things, but when you went back to the carbon, you said when you set your base, if you were going to go down this path, at what point, if I'm a conventional till farmer, at what point would you want to set your base and keep your base now?
Absolutely, because you're at the low point.
And then they're going to come out in 2 or 3 years. Do you want to start with a rye and forget a hairy bite because if you're building faster, that's going to be harder to keep up in the future, isn't it?
No, it's not about keeping up. It's about the amount you sell. So you want to increase. Realize you'll never be able to increase at the same percentages. I understand what you're asking. It's a long-term trend. I would not want to, you want to do your baseline when it's the most degraded. Now, does that mean Gabe Brown's going to go till all his land and reset things? No. I'm not going down that path because I'm highly profitable where I'm at. But it's actually in the carbon credit play. Those of you who are conventional farmers, ranchers, you have an advantage. You will show more improvement. But realize you're going to set that baseline now. You're going to come back in like 3 years, measure it again, see the difference. You would not want to go sell that total difference and multiply it times years ahead. You can only sell what you've done in the past, okay? That's all you're allowed to sell. Now, but you can keep going and have another one in 5 years and, you know, sell that too, okay? So I understand what you're saying. You're asking about the rates at which you sequester carbon. But it's only, you can't sell carbon, say, oh, trust me, I'll do this. No, you can only sell what you've already sequestered. But you have to have that baseline in order to prove it. Yeah. And realize they're going to be, one of the world's foremost authorities on carbon is Dr. Jason Roundtree, Michigan State University. I just talked to him the night before last on the phone. And he told me, Gabe, we're still several years out from getting that technology to be able to measure carbon at a low enough price point where it doesn't eat up the benefits. So we're just a bit early now. Other questions? Yes?
When you set your baseline, are you taking soil samples in the top foot, 2 foot? How far you want to go down?
Yep, when you're setting the baseline, and that will be determined by whatever company is verifying that for you. Okay, you're going to have to have a third-party verifier do that for you. Now, it's different. Australia is only taking it in the top 6 inches, which is a joke. But realize that's all you're being paid for, is the change you make in the top 6 inches. There are a number of companies in the United States that are working on satellite imagery. What they're working on is they're just more or less going to equate it to practices. They can tell by satellite imagery that you had a green growing crop for X amount of time. They're just going to pay you ballpark figures. Okay? They're going to come back in ground truth on some farms and measure it, but realize that that's not going to hold muster with a lot of these companies in the near future. So that's what I was talking about with Dr. Roundtree. How do we get, because I tell you what, you start pulling cores to 4 feet, it's going to cost you a pile of money to do that. Labor, time, testing, etc. I wish I had a good answer for you. Yes.
Are these testing schematics or whatever these tests, do they differentiate between like short-term and long-term pools?
That's what they're working on. The labile carbon and stable carbon.
Right.
Yeah, and the mineralized associated forms of carbon. That's what they're trying to determine right now. That's why I say the data is.
And I guess,
yeah.
Can I have a second part?
Sure.
Are we counting, what carbon we burn to, to grow these crops? Like,
Yeah.
when you say you have a carbon credit to sell, does that take into account whatever you had to
Yep.
burn to get it?
Yep, I understand what you're saying. And I would say that depends on that particular farm and ranch. Is it selling products also that it's claiming as carbon neutral? Say, for instance, use my ranch as an example. If we're selling our grass-finished beef and telling people by consuming this steak, you're putting 2 more pounds of carbon in the soil, I can't sell those carbon credits to somebody else. See, because I'm using them myself. So that you bring up a very good point, and it's one that has to be taken into consideration. That's exactly right. Yep. Yes.
Can you talk more about the TND test and
Yep.
what it does and where you get it?
Yep, so total nutrient digestion, it costs a whopping $60. You pull it the same as any other soil sample, just with a probe down to 12 inches deep. You just do a composite sample on a field. All we're doing is this is on, like, depends how large our clients are, but normally we'll just do one on a farm, just to show them. It's Regen Ag Lab does it. Most labs will do it. It'll show you the total organic and inorganic fraction of nutrients you have in that top 12 inches of the soil profile. That's what it'll show you. But we do that just to show people in their minds, they don't believe it. No, I'm deficient. I hear that all the time. You don't understand. We're deficient in this. We're deficient in that. Okay, here's the soil test saying you've got plenty. Now, just because you got it doesn't mean you can use it. It's bound out. So how do we make it available? We make it available through the principles and the process. It's just our way of helping give producers confidence to start moving in the right direction. For $60, it's why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? Because then your wife will be really mad how much money you spent on fertility all these years. I still got 300 slides if you want, but you're gonna get tired of listening. Yes?
I just was at a meeting, major university in this state, bad mouthing the hell out of you.
Yeah,
You
probably.
get what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you explain to people why they don't want to leave their
Yeah.
perch?
Yep. Yeah, and first of all, you know, I got a big target. Have you looked at my ass? I got a big. It's not gonna bother me. I get stones thrown at me all the time, Facebook, YouTube, all that. I don't respond. Can anybody argue this, what I said today? They may argue that this is fact. I'm not telling you anything that hasn't been proven by science. It's very difficult to get people to change their mind when their profit, their livelihood, depends on the status quo. Yeah, it's context. Exactly. Their context is, you know, yesterday I had a great time, and there was a number of fertilizer dealers there, and I was picking on them. And by the end of the program, they were laughing with me, and I was calling them by name. They were calling me names, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. They can't, though, deny. What are they going to do? Deny photosynthesis? They're going to deny any of the ecosystem processes? They can't. This is fact. But their livelihood depends on the status quo. Well, I'm sorry, but my livelihood as a farmer or rancher depends on me understanding this and applying it. Plain and simple. Yep. It's no problem. I've gotten letters from Monsanto before. It's no problem. You know, if they wanted to squelch me, they could. You know. Other questions? Yes.
So I have a hard time with the carbon credits.
Yep.
So us that have been doing it.
In the early 2000s, North Dakota Farmers Union had a carbon credit program. Okay? I had a neighbor who had 4 pastures, moved his cattle 4 times during the year. We were moving ours daily. We got paid the same amount. Okay? Was that fair? No. The only thing at consolation you can find is you've been reaping rewards from it all along. Now, could you go back and till and reset that? Yeah, but I'm willing to bet you probably wouldn't want to do that, you know? But that's just the way it is. It is. I know. I have the same thoughts because obviously we've increased our carbon too. It is what it is.
Gabe, let's take that one step further. In New Zealand, they're talking about taking land out of production and planting trees. Because
Yeah.
that is a more easily measurable way to capture carbon.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a client who is very, very big into selling carbon credits in the forestry market. We're talking billions of dollars. And the reason is just because of what you said, it's easily measured. There is not the science, people have not studied how much carbon we can put in the soil. When Dr. Williams and the team did the studies I just showed you on grazing, that was a landmark study. The studies that Dr. Lundgren is starting, that'll be, as I said, largest study done in the world. It just hasn't been done.
So that's why we have to help with this project. Because I'm
Yep.
afraid that big companies will come in, buy the land, plant trees, claim the credits, and a whole lot of rural America becomes poor instead of producing food.
Okay, could that happen? Yes, but I guess I'm more concerned about the human health and changing things today. I'm not gonna worry about all those other things. What'll be, will be.
Well, they're talking New Zealand milk production is gonna be fine for the next 10 years because they implemented their carbon program.
Okay, let me ask you this. Does it really make sense from a fossil fuel use standpoint to ship milk from New Zealand around the world?
Not at all.
Okay, so, we have to look at all sides of that too. I was in the grocery store in Bismarck and I was looking at a pepper. Came from Denmark. Now you tell me how a pepper can be put on a plane or a ship and arrive from Denmark to North Dakota. How much fuel did it take to do that? And then you look at that, how much nutrients can there really be in that pepper? Okay, we have to look at things like that too and make a choice. Do I really want to take part in some of those things? I honestly believe people should start eating more local, as much as possible. But I'm not naive enough to stop working with all these big companies because they're going to drive change much faster. I can come and talk to all of you, and I love doing it, but I can spend 1 hour on a Zoom meeting with the board of directors of General Mills, then I can influence thousands, plain and simple. So we got to work where things are at today and move forward. It's like being paid or not paid. We were early adopters, so be it. Other questions? I want questions from the students back there. They're all asleep. Yeah. Ask me some questions.
Was today more, did you learn more today than you would have in school?
They're afraid to say that, the teachers are. Yeah. You know what? I'm really trying hard. So we have a Regen Ag 101 online course and a grazing course online, and I have been pitching that to large companies to get that course in every FFA chapter in the United States. And I think I'm getting closer because I really believe the future sits right there and they can change it. They have the ability if we educate them as to these principles and processes. Yes?
We don't, okay, not to be rude, but where does a lot of your funding for your research, like universities get it from the Monsantos,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Where does a lot, who backs your funding type to do
Yep.
research?
Yep. Who backs it? My 4 partners and I, plain and simple. Now, some of the projects we piggyback on, like Ichthys Foundation, they're getting funding from the Xerces Society, Bee Growers of the U.S., many others who want it. Our company, Understanding Ag, our clients funded in the fact that the profits we make from consulting, we're putting right back into this. Yeah. If you know my 4 partners and myself, we are not motivated by getting rich ourselves. All of us farm and ranch ourselves with the exception of Kathy. It's not a money thing to us anymore. I showed you the picture of my grandson. That's why I do what I do, is for the next generation.
No, it just all costs money.
Yeah, it costs money. Our Regenified program, we're pumping $1 million into that, the 5 of us. Yeah, it costs money. But it has to be done if we're going to make change. There was a question over here somewhere. I thought I saw a hand up.
Gabe, could you give us 5 books to read?
5 books to read. The Bible would be number 1. Okay. It would be. Dirt to Soil, no, I won't do that. I can live without the 76 cents. A Soil Owner's Manual by John Stickett. Excellent book. Any book by Wendell Berry is good. One Straw Revolution by Masanabu, that was good. Teeming with microbes, teeming with fungi, those by Jeff Lowenfels, are really good, talking about what happens in the soil. Make Your Own Bed. That's a good book. That's a real short read by General McRaven. That's a good one. See Spot Run. That's what I like to read. Yeah. There's got to be, there's a question.
The General Mills you mentioned, and other companies like that, well, maybe I'm a pessimist, but I'm afraid we look down the road 20 years from now and how much good will they push. These companies are all in greenwashing, just like the grocery store,
Yeah.
just like the restaurants are.
Yeah, there is zero doubt about that, and that's the main reason we started Regenify. You know, Alan, myself, Shane knew, we've spent our whole lives trying to educate people as to regenerative ag. And when I see companies out there saying that they're regenerative, but they're really not, it bothers me. Now, in General Mills' defense, okay, General Mills came to us 4 years ago wanting to work with us to move producers down the regenerative path. What we were very, very hesitant and cautious to do so. But why we did is never once did they stipulate that any of the producers in the program had to sell to them. They don't buy direct from producers anyway. And so because of that, they have put over $100,000 per farm into the 69 farms, oat and wheat farms we're working with. They haven't asked for a single thing in return. Okay? And they pretty much let us run with it. So that's the reason I'll defend them. It's not easy because we get ridiculed for working with large companies. But as I said, they're going to move the needle quicker. And right now, we need to cover the soil and get some plants growing. Yeah? Come on, we wore everybody out. Dinner was too good. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about, in your book, you talked about like beef commodification, or how you and your farm do stuff like that?
How we direct market?
Yeah,
Is
direct-
that, yeah. I tell the story how in 1999 I took a load of oats to the elevator. They offered me 99 cents a bushel. I begged for that extra penny because I didn't want to sell for less than $1. They wouldn't give it to me. I come home and I remember telling my wife, I'm done with it. We are not going to be price takers, we're going to be price makers. Now I have to credit my son because he's the one who really took it to the next level. You know, I started selling things like growing crops for seed and doing things like that, selling seed stock in the beef business. But my son, he's like, I'll never forget, I was in a tractor one day and he called me and he says, you know, Dad, you preach diversity, but all you got is beef cattle. He said, I want some sheep and some chickens, and what could I say? I said, absolutely, whatever you want. And then he started direct marketing hot eggs out of the back of a pickup because it was illegal. You know, and I could never figure out why that kid liked to go to town once a week and deliver eggs. So I rode with him once. He pulls into Kmart parking lot, just like that, there's 20 vehicles with young single girls right there. Well played, son, well played. But he's still single, by the way. Anyway, he started direct marketing. And now, this may seem like bragging, but I don't care, I'm just telling you the truth. When Paul wanted to go down the direct marketing path, his mother and I said, okay, here's $10,000, we'll invest in your business. But you cannot borrow money and you're going to grow from the profits. He's going to do $1 million this year. All from profits. He's got walk-in freezers, he's got chest freezers, he's got delivery vans. He's, at any time, he can have $250,000 worth of product sitting there, all paid by cash. The guy's 34 years old and he's never borrowed a penny. Everything's from cash. So you young people back there, don't think it can't be done. People laugh at my son's 1,400 laying hens. You want to know what the net profit from those 1,400 laying hens was last year? This is after all costs. Feed, packaging, labor, everything. Just over $47,000. Yeah, I'll pick eggs for that. Right? Don't tell me there's not money in agriculture. There's money in it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go down the direct marketing route. If you don't want to, don't. I'm not telling you that, but there's young people out there who would love to. Sell your product to them. Let them direct market it. Okay? So, one of the best things Paul did, I mean, obviously you got to have a place to harvest, which slaughter facilities are an issue right now, of course. You got to have a way to direct market. But one of the key things for growing his business is when he signed on with 7 Sons out of Indiana. They developed a program called GrazeCart. Anybody can be on it. It is a software system that keeps track of all your inventory, and it's your point of sale. So he puts the inventory in there. People go to our website, they buy online, they order online. Most of the business he does is ship direct to people's doors. And people say, oh, you can't do that. We don't live by enough people. Look where we're at today. You got Milwaukee sitting there. There's more people in part of Milwaukee than there is in all North Dakota. North Dakota only has 730,000 people in the whole state. There's a delivery service in Bismarck that will deliver to anyone's door in the state of North Dakota for $20. I have no idea how they do that. You get out in western North Dakota, you can go 20 miles between doors. Okay? But Paul, all he does is every Sunday, orders have to be in. He packages up all the orders, takes them to FedEx, UPS, and Speedy, and there it gets delivered from there. He delivers anywhere in the lower 48. Now, our goal, his goal, is to sell it all locally. We'd like to do away from that, but because of fossil fuel usage. But right now, we don't have enough clients there locally. Okay. But he's marketing about 150 beef a year, 150 lamb a year, 300 to 400 hogs, 8,000 broiler chickens, eggs from 1,400 chickens, honey, and maple syrup. I probably missed a few too, I don't know. He's got 100, and last time I asked him, he had 167 different meat products he sells. You don't think people are willing to pay? Okay? We used to raise all the broiler chickens and butcher them ourselves, but once you get up to over 999, the state of North Dakota requires you to kill at a USDA-inspected facility. There is no facility in North or South Dakota. You're not going to ship a broiler chicken on a semi. That's hard to kill. So a young family Paul knew in Missouri was looking for a way to get in. Paul made a deal with them that they're raising the broilers now. Paul, we used to sell only whole chickens. And then one of Paul's mentors said, no, you got to start parting it out. You got to start selling by the piece. You can still sell whole, but you need to offer chicken breast, legs, wings. Do you know what he gets per pound for chicken breast? Anybody want to guess? $5, $6. $11. $16.99 a pound. He sold 8,000 heads, sold out. People are willing to pay. And people say, oh, but don't you feel guilty charging that much? Hell no. I'm a capitalist. I was broke at one time. Okay. Can everybody afford to drive a Cadillac? Okay. But it's amazing. Who do you think his customers are? Oh, they all got to be doctors and lawyers. No. 80% of them are families with young children. 80%. They want to put healthy food. Look at a box of cereal. 12-ounce box of cereal, what's that costing? You can eat our eggs and bacon cheaper than you can eat cereal. Okay? Food is preventative medicine if it's the right food. I contend that the vast majority of people in this country have not eaten nutrient-dense food. Okay? If you eat nutrient-dense food, your body knows it. And once you do, you're not going to go back. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. So, direct marketing. It's a lot of work. Paul will tell you, that 6,000-acre ranch, all those cattle, all those crops, cover crops, everything, it's ran by him. His girlfriend works for him full-time. He has one part-time hired hand. My wife does the bookwork and cleans the eggs. That's it. But look at all the things he doesn't do. He spends over half his time marketing. He doesn't have to apply fertilizer, doesn't have to apply fungicides, pesticides, doesn't have to work cattle, no, very, very easy to manage. Is he a busy boy? Yes, but I'm glad he's not getting in trouble. Yeah, but he's also making good money, yes.
What kind of, how do you certify on this, or do you gotta go through the state or anything like that? or-
Oh, do we gotta go? Oh, man. Don't get me started. So it's gonna depend on your state requirements. So all of the meat we sell has to be inspected by a USDA facility. So it's gotta be inspected there. But the real issue comes into the state inspection. So the state ag department has to send out an inspector every year to inspect our storage facilities, the freezers and everything. Okay? But they can't have the same inspector for meat as they do for eggs. No, that'd be too much sense. So they got to send out a separate inspector so they can keep that person employed. Then, when we go to farmers markets, and Paul does do some farmers markets during the summer, that's his drop points in the state. He goes a different direction every week to wherever their farmers market is and meets the people in that area who order. You got to be inspected by every separate health department. There's 11 different health departments in North Dakota, and you write a check each time. Each of those has to come and inspect you too. The state ag commissioner in North Dakota made the mistake of sitting across the aisle from me in an airplane once from Bismarck to Minneapolis. He faked being asleep because I know this guy well. I was reading him the riot act. I said, Doug, you're just wasting people's time. You should have one inspector. If that inspector inspects, then it's good for all the health departments, everything in the state. Oh no, we can't do that. I said, you can't do that because all you care about is employing people. And it's bureaucracy. And the problem is, look at that. That's 14 different inspections that we have to shut down and take time to do. So don't get me started, my blood pressure's racing. But you do what you gotta do. You do what you gotta do. And he just puts up with it, But it goes to show you wanna know why food costs are high? Part of it is all the bureaucracy you gotta jump through, Plain and simple. Any inspectors here? Yeah, I've been sticking my foot in my mouth all day, so it's okay. Yes.
Could you walk through the life cycle of that heifer that you butchered?
Yeah,
Walk
I
through it.
sure can. Realize its context, okay?
Yep.
We calve starting about mid-May through late June. The bull, okay, I'll start this way. Those calves stay on those cows all winter, okay? Grazing through snow. Are they gaining weight? No, they're lucky to be alive, okay? But that fits our context is we don't want to spend the time, labor's in short supply. We're not going to go start tractors and feed. What we do is, in the fall of the year, we have two different groups of cattle simply because the ranch is not contiguous. It's separated with a bunch of housing developments in between. The cow herd winters on one ranch, the grass finishers and yearling cattle at another. We know how many we have in each group. We have hay a particular area, and we like to hay a field about once every 3 or 4 years, and then it's grazed the other years. The bales are left out there where they fall, and we may bring some more bales to that area, depending on how many livestock we have. In October, we set the bales out in that field, decide if we have to add some to what was baled there. Then we go and we push the pigtail posts into the ground, about a week's worth of hay at a time. We know how many animals we're going to winter, you just do the math, it's simple. Then all you do in the winter is, they're grazing as long as possible. Usually we can make it till sometime in February before we got to start feeding the hay. Okay? This year it was a little earlier than that. Then we go out there, we turn them on, we string a wire, turn them into the first group of bales. They eat that for a week or however until they get her cleaned up, then it's on to the next group. Simple. We wean calves then, usually late March, early April. Depends when the snow leaves. Those calves are weaned, they fence line wean. After a couple days, they get moved to a pasture that was not grazed the previous year. So you got all this old grass plus some new stuff starting, usually by early April. The cows, they go the other direction, again onto the same thing. Well, those cows are thin. I'm not kidding you. My wife says I should, be through that regime in the winter. But what happens to a cow without a calf on it when you turn it out on good forage? Blows up like a tick, right? By the time we start calving mid-May, that cow's hog fat. Away we go again. Those calves are run then, they're removed daily through primarily native pastures all that summer. That fall, they graze native pastures, may graze some cover crops. So they're a year and a half, going on 2 years old. For a short amount of time, well, I should say this. In August, we will dump bulls out with all the heifer tails. Okay? 30 days. The end of 30 days, we pull the bulls. 90 days later, we ultrasound those heifers. Everything that's bred either goes into the cow herd or gets sold as a bred animal. Everything that's open is going to be grass finished. We do not pregnancy test our cows, and here's why. I pregnancy test cows. What do I do with a handful of calves off those open cows? I'm not going to have just a few calves in the corral. That'd create more work. No, those cows stay out there. They're thin that time of year in December anyway. They nurse those calves. What happens to an open cow in the spring of the year? Blows up, right? The last week of calving, the end of June, we go out, whatever pasture we're in, we just set up panels, walk everything through. Any cow that doesn't have a calf on her means she was either open or it died at birth. Okay? When's your hot hamburger market? 4th of July, right? We take those animals to kill, boom, sell them. Save all the headache of PG and all that kind of stuff. It's just easy. Then, those 2-year-olds that were open, alcohol, I like it. Those 2-year-olds that were open give me the fever. So you should see a couple of the ranches I consult on. Oh my goodness, there's one, counted over 2,000 elk when I was there. Just unreal. Anyway, okay. So at 2 years of age, some of those will start being ready to be killed. But we sell potloads, so we just graze them throughout the summer. Different pastures. Then right before, usually by late July, early August, they go on one of those warm season cover crop mixes I showed you. We can average 4 pounds a day on them on that stuff. Then they get loaded up and they all go to kill, some a load at a time. Yeah? They get killed down in Omaha, Nebraska, and they get hanged for 3 days, get cut into primals, get shipped over to northeast Missouri to our processor. They're wet aged for 30 days. They get fabricated and cut down into all the cuts we want, shipped back to us frozen. Everything's frozen, individual packages. Yep, I can do that cheaper than I can kill it in my own plant. Yeah.
Can you talk about the 30-day breeding open? You're breeding the cows for 30 days and why?
I'm breeding the heifers for 30, cows for
why?
45.
And why do you do that?
Yep, our goal, here, this will really get you thinking.
Yep.
Our goal is to not have more than 50% of those heifers get bred. Now, our reason for that is, if you understand epigenetics, and epigenetics is the ability of animals, based on their environment, will develop what's called epigenetics, and it's the ability of them to be adapted to that environment. Dr. Fred Provenza did a lot of work on this. What he found was, for instance, if you have a cow and that is pregnant and you feed that cow lower quality forage, that calf that's in utero will have better, what do I want to say, efficiency, survivability on lower quality forage. In our environment, in North Dakota, we grow the majority of our grass and forage in 6 to 8 weeks. And then it quits raining and we're extremely dry. Those cows have to be able to thrive and survive on very low quality forage. I don't care what the feedlot wants, I care what works in my environment. So we push our heifers very hard. By that I mean, my goal is to get them to winter on snow. And that alone, no feed, okay? the more I push them, the ones that do breed, they're gonna stay in the herd a long, long time. And yes, they went for burger and sticks, okay? And fact of the matter is, if a heifer gets bred in our environment, she's gonna stay in the herd, chances are a long time. And that's why we do that. You know, plus, we don't have that many fall out. So those that we don't need that many bred heifers to fill vacancies in the herd. The other thing is, and I'll just say that, I believe way too many people run way too many cows. You need to, in your driest year, your toughest year, how many head can you feed on your operation without buying purchased feed? That's the number you need to stay at for a cow herd. Use yearlings or stockers to make up the difference if you have excess forage. Way too many people run too many cows, and then if they have any hiccup at all in the weather, they're buying feed at a high price. You know what hay is right now in North Dakota? $150 to $180 a bag, you know? I mean, and that's for CRP hay, you know? Straw's $100+ a bag, 120, you know? Yeah. Don't want to be buying too much of that.